Sophie Miller slapped a bright pink card against my chest while half the student section yelled my name. Come on, Hayes. Pick one before somebody picks for you. Across the card, in fat black marker, somebody had already written model, and underneath it, in 3 different handwritings, actress, influencer, and Mary Rich. I held it up like evidence at a trial.
Wow.
Glad we all agree I have a strong academic future. That got the laugh I expected. Jordan Price leaned over the bleacher rail and called, "Definitely not college." The people around him cracked up, and I laughed too because when you had my grades, pretending the joke was yours was easier than explaining why it bothered you. Sophie hooked an arm through mine. You know I'm right about modeling. Look at you. I looked down at my faded denim jacket, black boots, and the cheap silver hoops I'd bought with tips from my weekend shifts.
Yeah.
Very Milan. You could wear a trash bag and make it expensive. Good, because that's roughly my clothing budget. Another laugh. Easy.
Familiar.
I was good at this part. Being looked at. Being wanted. Knowing exactly when to smile, and when to let somebody wonder if I was making fun of them. A sophomore I barely knew tried to hand me his phone. Put your number in? You're brave, I told him. I'm 17. Then you're also bad at math. Sophie nearly choked on her soda. The kid retreated red-faced, and before anybody could rescue him, someone behind me said, "Move." Tyler Bennett didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. People made room for him the way they did for quarterbacks, cops, and anybody who walked like the space already belonged to them. He ignored the pink card, ignored the guys looking at me, ignored Sophie's grin, and stopped directly in front of me with a paper cup in one hand. "Hot chocolate," he said. 2 sugars.
No whipped cream.
I took it. You remembered. He gave me a look. You've complained about whipped cream 12 times. That's not remembering. That's trauma. He smiled. Tyler remembered everybody's name and somehow forgot where he left his keys at least twice a week, but he knew exactly how I took my hot chocolate. He glanced at my hands wrapped around the cup. You cold?
No, yeah.
I bumped my shoulder into his. Controlling. Observant. Annoying. Still here. That one made me smile before I could stop it. Behind us, the marching band hit something loud and triumphant. The stadium lights burned white against the October dark, and the home crowd surged to its feet as Westbridge pushed toward the end zone. Tyler didn't turn around with everybody else. He reached past me instead and tugged the pink future card from Sophie's hand. He studied model, actress, influencer, Mary Rich, then uncapped the marker hanging from the string. Oh, this should be good, Sophie said. Tyler wrote something across the bottom, folded the card once, and slid into my jacket pocket before I could read it. What did you put? None of their business. It's literally my card. Then read it later. Before I could steal the marker, a dry voice cut through the noise. Hayes. Mrs. Ellis stood 3 rows down in her Westbridge faculty jacket, holding a sheet of paper between 2 fingers. My stomach sank before she even climbed the steps. You left before I could give this back. Sophie suddenly found the field fascinating. Tyler's smile disappeared. Mrs. Ellis handed me the paper. Red ink covered the top corner.
D.
Not a cute D-. Not a generous D-.
A deeply committed, professionally executed D-.
You'll need to retake this, she said. And given your current average, I strongly suggest you take that seriously. Jordan, still close enough to hear, whistled under his breath. There goes Harvard. I folded the paper before anybody else could see it. Harvard will survive. Mrs. Ellis didn't smile. Will you? She moved on before I could answer. For once, I didn't have a comeback ready. Tyler took the test from my hand, glanced at the grade, then folded it smaller and tucked it behind the pink card in my pocket. Forget them. Kind of hard when one of them controls whether I graduate. You'll graduate. Based on what evidence? You always land on your feet. I folded the test again and shoved it deeper into my pocket. That is an extremely generous interpretation of my academic record. Above the stadium, something low and silver crossed the darkness. A passenger jet, climbing steadily, its navigation lights blinking red and white. The crowd roared at something happening on the field, but I watched the plane instead. Just for a few seconds. Long enough to follow it until the lights nearly disappeared into the black. Tyler touched my elbow. "Where'd you go?" I looked back at him. Nowhere. His eyes narrowed like he didn't believe me, but he let it go. Then his grin returned. "Party Saturday." I groaned. "I have that retake coming up." So Mrs. Ellis just threatened my entire educational career. Your entire educational career has been threatening itself for years. I laughed despite myself. Tyler leaned closer, lowering his voice like he was offering me a secret instead of trouble. "Come on, Lena. One night won't change your life." I looked at him, then at the field, then once more at the empty patch of sky where the plane had vanished.
"Fine," I said.
Tyler caught the football one-handed before it hit me in the face, tucked it under his arm, and pointed across the parking lot. "Try throwing at someone who's actually playing." The two guys near the tailgate laughed and raised their hands in surrender. "Relax, Bennett. We were aiming for the future supermodel. Then work on your arm." Tyler tossed the ball back hard enough to send both of them scrambling. I took another sip from my soda. "My hero." "You're welcome." I was talking to the football. He hooked 2 fingers through my belt loop and pulled me closer. "Keep talking." "I usually do." I kissed him before he could come up with anything better. Someone behind us yelled, "Get a room," and Tyler raised 1 finger over my shoulder without breaking the kiss. I laughed against his mouth. Saturday night had swallowed half the senior class into the Bennett family's lake house, a place on the good side of town where the driveway had a basketball hoop that wasn't held together with duct tape, and nobody kept an empty coffee can under the kitchen sink for loose change. Tyler's dad had given him the keys for the weekend. My mom would have given me a lecture and maybe a bus schedule. Sophie appeared beside us with a red cup. "Lena, your fan club is getting restless." She pointed toward the fire pit, where Ryan Cole lifted his cup at me and Mason Green made a heart with his hands. "Popular tonight," Tyler said. "Jealous." "I have better hair." "Debatable." "You're dating me." "For now." He smiled and pulled me closer. Ryan shouted, "Hayes, when Bennett gets boring, call me." Before I could answer, another voice cut in. She'd have to own a phone worth calling first. Madison Clark was sitting on the edge of the patio with 2 girls from cheer, looking at the cracked corner of my screen. "Seriously, Lena, does that thing even get texts?" I held it up. "Mostly from your boyfriend." Sophie made a noise somewhere between a cough and a scream. Madison's smile tightened. Tyler picked up his drink. "Hey, Madison." She looked at him. "What?" "My girlfriend's phone costs less than yours." He took a sip. "She still gets invited places without begging." The guys around the fire went quiet for half a second, then Ryan burst out laughing. Madison rolled her eyes and walked toward the house. "That was mean," I said.
"Yeah."
I liked it. "I know." He handed me a fresh soda from the cooler. Diet lime. He'd grabbed it without asking. Later, when the music got louder and everybody started arguing about where to go next, Tyler found me sitting on the hood of his Mustang. He climbed up beside me and stretched his legs toward the windshield. "You disappeared." I moved 20 feet. "Same thing." "You survived." "Barely." He offered me his hoodie. I pulled it over my shoulders. It smelled like his detergent and whatever stupidly expensive cologne his mother bought him. My phone buzzed. MOM flashed across the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey." Rachel's voice came sharp through the speaker. "You said 11. I checked the time. 11:18. "I know. I'm leaving soon." "Lena." "Mom, I said I'm leaving. You have schoolwork." I glanced at Tyler. He was looking out over the dark field beyond the house, giving me enough space to pretend he couldn't hear. "I know. And I need the car tomorrow morning." "I know." "Then come home." The call ended. I stared at the cracked screen. Tyler tapped his heel against the bumper. "Want me to drive you?" "In a minute." He nodded. That was it.
No lecture.
No joke about my mom. No reminder that everyone else was staying. I leaned back against the windshield. After a while, Tyler did too. The party sounded farther away from there. Where are we in 10 years? He asked. I turned my head. What? 10 years. Where are we? Why are you asking me this? Because I'm deep now. That's terrifying. He nudged my shoe with his. Come on. I thought about our school, my street, the diner where I worked weekends, the stack of overdue bills Rachel kept under a magnet on the fridge. Anywhere but here. Tyler smiled. Okay. City. Maybe. House. Only if somebody else cleans it. Dogs. 1. 2. You're pushing it. I'll pay for both. Look at you, Mr. Moneybags. He laughed. Then his voice softened. Together? I looked at him. Tyler had 100 plans for himself. College. Business school. Working with his dad. A house somewhere bigger than Westbridge. He talked about them like roads already paved and waiting. Somehow, whenever he talked long enough, there was always a place for me beside him. Obviously, I said. His smile came slow. He leaned over and kissed me, one hand warm against my cheek. Somewhere above us came the low hum of an airplane. I opened my eyes. Tiny lights moved across the black sky, steady and distant. I watched them for a few seconds until Tyler brushed his thumb along my cheek. Hey. I looked back at him. Hey. He smiled. Chicago after college. We get an apartment downtown. You do the modeling thing for a while. Maybe something with social media. I'll work with my dad until I can start my own company. You've planned all this? Somebody has to. I laughed and rested my head against his shoulder. Tyler took my hand and threaded his fingers through mine. Trust me, he said. We're getting out of here. Above the roofline, the airplane became one blinking light, then disappeared. By the time Tyler dropped me off, Mom was standing in the kitchen with my D- in one hand and the electric bill in the other. Great, I said, shutting the front door behind me. Love the visual. Rachel Hayes had a way of looking tired and angry at the same time, which was impressive considering she'd been on her feet since 6 that morning. Her scrub top was wrinkled, her hair was coming loose from the clip at the back of her head, and the grocery store name tag was still pinned crooked near her shoulder. Where were you? She asked. Out. I gathered that. I set my bag on the chair. The kitchen light buzzed overhead. Tyler brought me home. That answers a question I didn't ask. I opened the refrigerator. Half a carton of eggs, mustard, leftover pasta, 3 bottles of water, and a yogurt that had probably seen things. Please tell me there's food hidden somewhere. There was. You missed dinner. That feels personal. Lena. I shut the fridge. Mom put the test on the table between us. You got a D-. I noticed. You still have to retake this. Also noticed. Then why were you out tonight? I leaned against the counter. Because it's Saturday. Your grade doesn't care what day it is. Mrs. Ellis already gave me the speech. I'm sure she did. Mom picked up the electric bill again and flattened it against the table with her palm. You think I enjoy doing this? Doing what? Coming home exhausted and finding another problem waiting for me. That one landed harder than I wanted it to. I grabbed the leftover pasta from the fridge and peeled back the foil. I'm not a problem. I didn't say you were. You kind of did. I said your grades are a problem. Same difference when it's every conversation. She exhaled through her nose and looked toward the ceiling like patience might be stored up there. You're 17, Lena. You're almost done with high school. What happens after graduation? I don't know. That's exactly what scares me.
Why?
Plenty of people don't know. Plenty of people have parents who can pay for a few wrong turns. I stopped digging through the silverware drawer. Mom tapped the electric bill with one finger. You don't. I found a fork. So, what? I'm supposed to have my entire life figured out because we're broke? I'm saying you don't get the luxury of pretending choices don't matter. I'm not pretending. She looked at the test again. Then what are you doing? I stared at the pasta instead of her. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. Tyler, you alive? I didn't answer yet. Mom crossed her arms. Sophie's talking about college applications. Tyler already knows where he wants to go. Even Jordan Price has a plan. Jordan Price thinks protein powder is a food group, and somehow he still has a plan. I laughed once, but Mom stayed serious. Everybody keeps saying modeling, I said. Maybe I'll do that. Do you want to? I shrugged. Maybe. That's not an answer. It's the answer I have. Mom's eyes softened for maybe half a second, then she picked up the test again. You are smart enough to do better than this. Apparently the math department disagrees. You barely study. Because I hate it. You hate anything that makes you sit still long enough to find out you're not immediately good at it. My jaw tightened. Nice. I'm your mother. I'm allowed to tell you the truth. You mean the version you like. Beauty isn't a plan, Lena. The kitchen went quiet except for the refrigerator motor. I set the fork down. I know. Do you? Yes. Because sometimes I think you've gotten so used to people telling you how pretty you are that you think something will just work itself out. Heat crawled up my neck. You think that's all I have? I think you act like it's enough. I looked away from her and caught the framed photo on the shelf near the hallway. Dad in a green flight suit, younger than I remembered him, holding a little blonde kid on his hip. Me, apparently. I reached over and turned the frame face down. Mom watched me do it. Neither of us said anything about it. My phone buzzed again. Tyler. Want me to come back? I picked it up. Mom started gathering the bills into a pile. I'm going to bed. Please study tomorrow. I typed 2 words. Come get me. Tyler answered before I could put the phone down. On my way. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across my bedroom wall. I pulled on jeans, shoved my feet into sneakers, and pushed the window up. Mom's bedroom light was still on across the hall. I climbed onto the sill and looked back once. Her door stayed closed. I dropped into the yard, and Tyler was already waiting at the curb. I climbed into Tyler's car and pulled the door shut. Drive. He looked over at me. That bad. Worse. He started the car. Food. I'm not hungry. Okay. Where do you want to go? I stared through the windshield for a second. Anywhere. Tyler smiled a little and pulled away from the curb. I spent the first 10 minutes telling him everything Mom had said, including the parts one probably deserved. By the time I finally stopped talking, we were past the last strip mall and heading toward the coast. Where are we going? I asked. You said anywhere. 20 minutes later, I was carrying my shoes across cold sand while Tyler followed behind me with 2 Cokes from a gas station. We sat near the water, far enough back that the waves only reached our toes once in a while. I kept talking. Tyler listened, throwing in a joke whenever I got too angry, until somewhere between complaining about Mom and making fun of the way she said the word plan, I started laughing. There she is, he said. Shut up. I bumped my shoulder against his. He caught my hand and kept it. We stayed there until the Coke was warm and I had run out of things to be mad about. On the drive home, I rested my head against the window and watched the streetlights slide across the glass. When Tyler turned onto my street, I sat up. Already? It's been 2 hours. I looked toward my house at the end of the block. Could have fooled me. By Friday, apparently everybody was still interested in my future. This time it was Sophie, and all it took was one woman with a camera and a business card. This is not normal, she said, waving the card in front of my face like she discovered buried treasure. People do not just walk up to random girls at career day and say, hey, you should model. She said I photographed well. Same thing. Pretty sure it isn't. We were standing near the gym entrance while half the senior class wandered between folding tables covered in college brochures, trade school flyers, military pamphlets, and people smiling way too hard about jobs they probably hated. The photographer's card was thick, cream-colored, and expensive enough to make me feel guilty holding it. Vanessa Grant. Portrait and commercial photography. Talent referrals. There was a website printed underneath. Real website. Real studio address. Sophie had already checked.
Twice.
She works with agencies in Chicago, Sophie said. Actual agencies. You sound more excited than I am. Because you're being weird. I'm standing here. Exactly. Usually when somebody tells you you're pretty, you act like they've announced the weather. That's because people have eyes. She shoved my shoulder. You're impossible. Across the gym, Jordan Price caught me looking and pointed at the photographer's table. Then he mimed walking a runway so badly that I nearly choked on my drink. There's my support system, I said. Sophie grinned. You could make real money. That part had already occurred to me. Real money meant helping Mom with the electric bill without making it a whole conversation. Real money meant a phone screen without a crack through the corner. Real money meant leaving Westbridge without needing somebody else to pay for the ticket. Vanessa had shown me photos from a local clothing campaign and explained that beginners usually started small. Catalog work, promotional shoots, regional brands. Nothing glamorous enough for Sophie's imagination, but enough to make the idea feel less like one of Jordan's jokes. Tyler found us 20 minutes later, carrying a college brochure rolled into his back pocket. So, I hear I'm dating America's next top whatever. Sophie pointed at him.
See?
He gets it. I handed him the card. He read both sides. This is legit? Apparently. That's awesome. His answer came fast enough that I looked at him. He handed the card back and smiled. You'd kill it. You haven't seen me try. I've seen you get away with wearing my old sweatshirt like it was intentional. It was intentional. It had paint on it. Vintage. He laughed and reached for my hand. Sophie wandered toward the nursing program table, announcing that she refused to stand near us when we were being disgusting. Tyler looked around the gym. Chicago has agencies everywhere. You already researched this? I know Chicago.
Right.
Your 10-year master plan. Exactly. He tapped the college brochure against my arm. I go there. You do this. We get out of Westbridge. The way he said it made the whole thing sound simple. College for him. Modeling for me. Apartment downtown. 2 dogs if he won the argument. I could see it because he'd already described it enough times. I could even see myself in it if I didn't look too closely. What if I wanted something else? I asked. Tyler's expression changed just slightly. Like what? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He waited. I don't know, I said. Okay. He squeezed my hand once, then figured out. Very helpful. I'm serious. You've got time. My mother would disagree. Your mother thinks 17 is 40. She's not completely wrong. We walked out through the side doors because the gym had started to feel too warm. A jet crossed high above the football field, bright against the afternoon blue. I stopped without meaning to. Tyler took 2 more steps before he noticed. Again, he said. What? The plane thing. I looked up until the sunlight made me squint. I like watching them. Since when? I don't know. He followed my eyes for a second, then checked his phone. Saturday, by the way. Matt's parents are gone. I looked back at him. I have that exam. Monday? Yeah. Tyler smiled. Since when do you care? I laughed because that was what I usually did when he said something true before I was ready for it. Then I looked down at Vanessa Grant's card in my hand, and the laugh faded before I could stop it. Vanessa called that afternoon. I almost didn't answer because I was halfway through my shift at the diner and balancing 3 plates on one arm, but Sophie had apparently given her my number after deciding my future required administrative assistance. I had a cancellation tomorrow morning, Vanessa said. Local clothing catalog. Nothing glamorous. They need one more girl, and I thought of you. Do I need to know what I'm doing? Can you stand where I tell you and not panic when someone points a camera at you? I looked through the kitchen window at a customer waving for more coffee. That describes most of my life. Vanessa laughed. 9 o'clock. The next morning I stood inside her studio wearing jeans that cost more than everything in my closet combined while a woman named Claire pinned the back of a sweater so it fit correctly. Bright white lights surrounded me. A fan pushed my hair away from my face. Vanessa lifted her camera. Chin down a little. Eyes here. The shutter clicked. Turn your shoulder.
Click. Good.
Don't pose so hard. I'm barely doing anything. Exactly. 20 minutes later, she lowered the camera and looked through the shots. You're easy to photograph. Is that a compliment? It's a paycheck if you want it to be.
You walked over.
On the screen, I looked like somebody who knew exactly where she was going. Clean clothes. Perfect light. No cracked phone. No D- folded inside a backpack. That's me. Last time I checked, Vanessa tapped through 3 more images. The boutique pays beginners $150 for the half day. If they use you again, it goes up. $150 for standing under lights while somebody told me where to look. I thought about Mom's electric bill. Yeah, I said. I could probably tolerate that. During the next setup, Claire changed my jacket while Vanessa adjusted a light near the window. A low engine sound passed overhead. I turned before I meant to. Beyond the glass, a passenger jet crossed the blue between 2 buildings. Lena? Vanessa called. I kept watching until it disappeared behind the roofline.
Sorry.
I turned back toward the camera. Where do you want me? When I got home, I found the electric bill beneath the magnet on our refrigerator, counted out $80 from what Vanessa had paid me, and slid it underneath. Mom noticed while I was drinking water at the sink. She pulled the money free and looked at me. What's this? Model money. Lena. It's legal. I checked. She almost smiled. You should keep it. I kept some. You earned all of it, and I live here for all of it. Mom looked down at the bills in her hand. For once, neither of us argued. I went upstairs before she could make it weird. By 4 that afternoon, the $80 under Mom's electric bill felt like evidence that maybe everyone else had been right about me, and the algebra review sheet spread across my bed felt like evidence that Mrs. Ellis definitely was. I stared at the first problem for 6 minutes. Then I checked the answer key.
Wrong.
I tried the second one. Also wrong. Excellent, I told the ceiling. A pattern. My phone buzzed beside my knee. Sophie, Matt's at 8. Where's something illegal? I turned the phone face down and tried problem 3. 10 minutes later, I had erased through the paper hard enough to leave a gray hole where the answer was supposed to be. I opened my textbook. The explanation somehow used more letters than numbers, which felt personally disrespectful. Another buzz. Tyler. Want me to pick you up at 7:30? I typed studying. 3 dots appeared immediately. I'm proud and frightened. I smiled despite myself. Shut up. Need help? I looked at the page. Tyler was good at math. Tyler was good at almost everything school expected people to be good at. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed no. I got it. The lie looked convincing enough on a phone screen. I worked another problem.
Wrong.
I went downstairs, got water, came back, and tried again.
Wrong.
40 minutes later, the review sheet looked exactly the same except for more eraser marks, and one corner I had accidentally torn. Mom passed my open door carrying laundry.
She stopped.
You're studying? Please don't make a big deal out of it. I wasn't going to. She stood there another second. Want help? Can you explain quadratic equations? Absolutely not. Then our relationship has reached its natural limit. She smiled and kept walking. I looked back at the page. One more problem. I wrote half an equation, got stuck, erased it, wrote it again, and felt the frustration rise so fast I wanted to throw the pencil across the room. My phone buzzed. Sophie, if you make me walk into this party alone, I will tell everyone about 6th grade bangs. I stared at the unfinished equation. Then I shut the textbook. Tomorrow, I said. I changed my shirt and went downstairs. The first thing I noticed when we got to Matt's house was that somebody had moved the speakers into the living room and turned the bass up high enough to rattle the picture frames. The second thing I noticed was Ryan Cole leaning against the kitchen counter with a red cup in his hand and a grin that meant trouble.
Hayes, he called.
You came. Try not to sound so surprised. I figured Bennett finally chained you to something. Tyler appeared behind me with 2 sodas and handed me the one with lime before Ryan could say anything else. You worry about your own survival, Tyler said. Ryan lifted both hands. Relax. I'm being friendly. You're bad at it. I laughed and took the drink. He's right. Ryan pressed a hand to his chest. This is bullying. You'll recover. The house was packed with people from school, music spilling out through the open back door, somebody already dancing on a coffee table like graduation was happening tomorrow instead of months away. Sophie dragged me into the living room before I'd finished half my drink. By the time the next song started, I had forgotten about Mrs. Ellis, the retake, Vanessa Grant's business card, Mom's face across the kitchen table, and every other thing that had been sitting too close to the surface all week. Tyler danced badly on purpose until I shoved him. He grabbed my wrist, spun me back, and Sophie screamed like we were performing for an audience instead of making idiots of ourselves near a couch. Later, Ryan found me by the back door while Tyler was outside talking to Matt. "So," he said, "you ever get tired of dating the same guy? Do you ever get tired of asking questions you already know the answer to?" "Sometimes I like hearing the answer change. Keep waiting." He smiled. "Worth a shot." Tyler came through the door, saw Ryan standing close, and slid one arm around my waist. "You good?" he asked me. "Perfect." Ryan laughed. "Man, you really are jealous." Tyler looked at me instead of him. "Should I be?" "Probably," I said. "I'm extremely desirable." "That part one no." I grinned. "See? Healthy communication." Ryan made a gagging noise and walked away. Tyler watched him go, then looked back at me. "You enjoy that way too much. You being jealous? You making me look stupid. You do most of the work yourself." He pulled me closer. "Mean. Sensitive. Come here." I kissed him before he could finish whatever comeback he had planned. His hand settled at my waist, familiar and warm, and for a minute the rest of the room blurred into music and people shouting over each other. When we finally pulled apart, Sophie pointed at us from across the room and mouthed disgusting. I blew her a kiss. Around midnight, people started leaving in groups. I found Tyler near the front door searching his pockets. "Keys?" I asked. He held them up.
"Gotcha."
"You okay to drive?"
"Yeah."
I stopped drinking a while ago. I watched him for a second. His eyes were clear.
His voice was steady.
"Okay." He opened the passenger door for me outside, then waited until I was in before walking around to the driver's side. The streets were quiet once we left the neighborhood. Tyler had one hand on the wheel and the music low enough that we could talk without yelling. "You studying tomorrow?" he asked. "Look at you, caring about my education." I contain multitudes. That word was on your SAT prep list, wasn't it? "Maybe." I laughed. "I'll study."
"Good."
Don't sound so shocked.
"I'm supportive."
"You're annoying." Also supportive. At the stop sign, Tyler reached over and squeezed my knee.
"See?
Supportive." "Eyes on the road, Bennett." He glanced left, then looked back at me with a grin as the car started rolling forward. I turned toward the passenger window and saw headlights coming fast from the right. Tyler. His head snapped forward. He hit the brakes and jerked the wheel. Tires screamed. My shoulder slammed against the door, metal folded somewhere ahead of us, and the car spun hard enough to throw my phone onto the floor before everything stopped. For a few seconds, I heard only my own breathing. "Tyler." His hands were locked around the steering wheel.
"I'm okay."
His voice came out thin. I pushed the door open and stumbled onto the road. Another car sat crooked against the curb, its front end crushed. Someone inside was crying. Tyler came around the hood. Oh my God. A man from a nearby house was already running toward the other car with his phone out. "Call an ambulance," somebody shouted. Tyler grabbed my hand. His fingers were shaking. "Lena, we stay here." I squeezed his hand harder. "We tell them exactly what happened." He looked at me, breathing fast.
"Yeah."
Sirens reached us minutes later. Then flashing lights. Questions. Paramedics pulling the other driver out carefully. A police officer separated us near the sidewalk. I could see Tyler across the road when a black SUV pulled up and Richard Bennett stepped out. Tyler's father crossed straight to him, one hand gripping his shoulder as they spoke in low voices. Tyler kept looking at the damaged cars. Richard said something else.
Tyler's face changed.
The officer beside me opened his notebook. "Lena, I need you to walk me through what happened before the collision." I turned toward Tyler. He was already looking at his father. Then he lowered his eyes. The officer kept his notebook open while I looked across the road at Tyler. Richard Bennett had one hand on his son's shoulder and the other pressed flat against the roof of the SUV, talking close to his ear. Tyler nodded once. Then again. Lena, the officer said. I turned back.
Sorry.
Start from when you left the house. My mouth felt dry. Tyler was driving. We were heading home. We stopped at the intersection, started through, and then I saw headlights coming from the right. The officer wrote something down. Were you arguing? No. Were you distracting him? I looked at him. What do you mean? Talking, touching him, reaching for something, anything that might have pulled his attention from the road. I glanced at Tyler again. Richard was still speaking to him. We were talking. About what? School. Anything heated? No, he nodded and kept writing. Had Tyler been drinking? He stopped earlier. How much earlier? A couple hours, maybe. And you? I had one drink when we got there. Soda after that. His pen moved across the page. All right. By the time Rachel arrived, the other driver was already inside the ambulance. I caught pieces from the paramedics. Possible broken leg, head injury, conscious, stable enough to transport. Mom came straight toward me in the sweatshirt she slept in, her hair tied back badly, face pale with anger and fear. She grabbed both my shoulders and checked me over like she expected to find something missing. Are you hurt?
I'm okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
She pulled me into her for 1 second, tight enough to knock the air out of me, then stepped back. Across the street, Richard was talking to another officer now. Tyler stood beside him with his arms folded. Rachel followed my eyes. What happened? I told the officer. I'm asking you. We started into the intersection. I saw the other car coming from the right. Tyler swerved, and we hit each other. Her jaw tightened. Who was driving? Tyler. She looked over at him again. Richard noticed us. He crossed the street before Tyler did. Rachel, he said. Mom's whole body stiffened. Richard. First, I'm glad Lena's all right. So am I. He turned to me. You're sure you're not hurt?
I'm fine.
Good. He nodded slowly. Tyler says things happen quickly. I waited. Apparently, there was some distraction in the car. Rachel's eyes sharpened. What kind of distraction? That's still being sorted out. He gave me the careful smile adults use when they want to sound polite while moving you somewhere useful to them. Lena, did you reach across the console at any point? No. Did you grab Tyler? No. Were you arguing? No. Richard looked back toward his son. He remembers the two of you talking right before the car entered the intersection. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. We were talking. Of course. He nodded again. Teenagers talk.
Music was on.
It was late. Everybody was tired. He was driving. Rachel said it flatly. Richard looked at her. And nobody is saying otherwise. Sounds like you're getting close. Tyler finally crossed the road. His eyes went straight to me. Lena. What did you tell them? He stopped a few feet away. I told them what I remember. Which is? Richard stepped in. Everyone's shaken up. This conversation can wait.
I'm asking Tyler.
Tyler rubbed both hands over his face. I said we were talking, and I looked away for a second. Why? He hesitated. My chest tightened. Tyler. I don't know, Lena. Everything happened so fast. Were you looking at me? Maybe. Because I distracted you? He looked at his father before answering. That was enough to make Rachel step closer to me. Tyler saw it. I'm not blaming you. Then say that. I just said it. Say it to them.
His face changed.
Lena, come on. Tell them I didn't cause this. Richard exhaled sharply. Nobody has accused you of causing anything. Then why am I being asked if I grab him? Tyler lowered his voice. Can we talk somewhere else? I'm good here. Please. I stared at him for another second, then walked toward the edge of the parking lot.
He followed.
Rachel stayed close enough to see us, far enough to give me room. Tyler stopped beside a tree and shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. My dad says this could turn into a reckless driving charge because somebody got seriously hurt. Okay. And if that happens, I could lose the scholarship. I waited for the rest. College could get complicated. Okay. Lena. What? My whole future could disappear. The words came out harder than he meant them to.
I felt that instantly. So, did he?
His face shifted. I didn't mean, what about mine? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? I'm saying I have a lot riding on this. And I don't. You know I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? He ran a hand through his hair. You don't even know what you want yet. Everything in me went still. Tyler's mouth opened, but I was already looking past him toward the flashing red and blue lights. Lena. I nodded once. Maybe that's why everyone thinks mine is easier to throw away. I turned toward Mom. Tyler called my name behind me. I kept walking. By Sunday evening, I had answered exactly 0 of Tyler's calls. Tyler was waiting outside the diner when my shift ended, standing beneath the awning with both hands shoved into his jacket pockets. I saw him through the glass before he saw me, and for one stupid second my body remembered him before my brain did. The way he always waited on my side of the car. The way he checked the time when I worked late because he knew Mom hated me walking home after dark. Then he looked up. Can we talk? I tightened my grip on my bag. You're here, so I'm guessing that was the plan. Lena. His voice sounded wrecked. I walked past him toward the sidewalk. He followed. I screwed up. That narrows it down. Tyler flinched. At the crash. With my dad. With you. I looked past him toward Main Street. You were scared.
Yeah.
So was I. I know. Stop saying that. He swallowed.
Phoenix.
Cars moved past us, tires hissing over wet pavement. Tyler looked down at his shoes, then back at me. My dad started talking about charges. My scholarship. College. Insurance. Everything at once. I panicked. And I became convenient. I never wanted that. You let it happen. His jaw tightened, then relaxed.
Yeah.
That answer hurt more than another excuse would have. He stepped closer.
I'm sorry.
I looked away. I mean it. I know you mean it. Then please look at me. I did. His eyes were red around the edges. Tyler could talk his way through teachers, coaches, angry parents, almost anybody. Now, he stood there searching for words. I love you, he said. My chest tightened so fast I hated him for it. I believed him. That made everything worse. I love you too. His shoulders dropped like I had handed him something back. He reached for me slowly, giving me enough time to move away. I stayed where I was. His hand touched my cheek. I leaned into it before I could talk myself out of it. Then he kissed me. I kissed him back. For a few seconds, Tyler was Tyler again. The boy who remembered how I took my hot chocolate. The boy who drove across town when I texted 2 words. The boy whose future had included me so automatically that I had started treating it like mine. He pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine. We can fix this. I closed my eyes. I know. His thumb moved once along my cheek. Then let me. I opened my eyes. I don't know how to trust you anymore. His hand fell away. Lena, when everything was easy, I never had to wonder if you'd choose me. I did choose you. Until choosing me cost something. He looked like I'd hit him. Tears burned behind my eyes, and I hated those too. I'm not saying you don't love me. Then what are you saying? I'm saying I still love you, and somehow that doesn't make this okay. His mouth tightened. Give me a chance. I hate that I still want to. A tear slid down before I could wipe it away. I hate that I still love you. Tyler reached for my hand. I stepped back. Please. I can't do this tonight. Then tomorrow. I shook my head and started walking. He called my name once. Then again. I kept going. Mom was at the kitchen table when I got home, sorting bills into little piles like moving them around could make the numbers smaller. She looked up when I came in but didn't ask about my face right away. The police called this afternoon. I stopped with one hand still on my bag. Why? Tyler went back in with his father. I waited. Mom slid one of the bills aside. He corrected his statement. Made it clear you never grabbed him, never reached across the console, never caused the crash. Okay. He also told them he looked away while he was driving. Okay. Mom watched me carefully. Lena, he took responsibility. I dropped my bag beside the chair. That doesn't undo what happened. I didn't say it did. Then why are you telling me? Because what he did Saturday matters, and what he did afterward matters too. They don't cancel each other out. I hated that she was right enough to make me angry.
Great.
Can we not do the wise mother thing tonight? Wasn't planning on it. She looked at me again. What happened? Nothing. Lena. I dropped my bag on the floor.
I'm tired.
Did Tyler come to see you? Of course he did. And he's sorry. Everybody's sorry.
Great.
Problem solved. Mom pushed the bills aside. Sit down. I don't want to sit down. Then stand there and yell if that's what you need. You'd love that. I'd love for you to stop pretending you're fine. I laughed once. You want honesty?
Fine. He loves me.
He still let me stand there while his dad tried to make me part of the reason he crashed. Mom's face hardened. Then he failed you. Everybody does eventually. That isn't true. Really? I pointed toward the hallway. Tyler did. Dad did. Mom went completely still. Don't.
Why?
We never talk about him anyway. Lena. He left, and you act like saying his name will break something. Mom pushed back from the table. Your father didn't leave you. You're lying. The words came out before I had time to decide whether I believed them. Mom's face changed. She looked older somehow, like the kitchen light had found every year she'd spent refusing to talk about him. I'm not. Then where was he? Lena. You've had 17 years to come up with a better answer than that. She pushed her chair back and stood. For a second, I thought she was walking away from me again. Instead, she crossed the hall and opened the narrow closet beside her bedroom. I heard boxes scrape against the floor. When she came back, she carried a dark wooden box I had never seen before. She set it on the kitchen table between the bills and my abandoned school bag. What is that? Mom sat down. Your father.
Is certes her.
That's dramatic, even for you. Her hand rested on the lid. I kept everything I could. She opened it. The first thing I saw was a pair of silver wings. Under them sat a military patch, several photographs, a watch with a scratched black face, folded papers held together with an old rubber band, and letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. I picked up the wings. They were heavier than they looked. He was a pilot? Mom nodded. Air Force. I looked toward the hallway, toward the photograph I had turned face down days earlier. Same green flight suit. Same wings above his chest. I had seen that picture my whole life, but Mom had always called it his uniform and left it at that. I had stopped asking long before I was old enough to understand what I was looking at. You told me he left. I told you he was gone. You let me believe he left. Mom looked down at her hands. You were 5 when he died. The word hit harder than I expected. Died. His aircraft went down during a mission. I pushed back from the table. You said he chose the military over us. I said he chose to stay in. That is not the same thing. I know. You let me hate him. My voice cracked on the last word, which made me angrier. Mom's eyes filled, but she kept looking at me. I didn't know how to make you miss a man who is never coming home. I laughed once, sharp and ugly. So, you made me think he didn't want to? I made mistakes. That's a pretty big one. Yes. The answer stopped me. Mom usually defended herself, explained, listed reasons. This time, she just sat there with tears running down her face. I looked back into the box. There was a photograph of Dad standing beside a jet with 3 other men, all of them grinning into the sun. Another showed him holding me on his shoulders. I was wearing pink rain boots and one of his flight helmets, much too big for my head. On the back, in blue ink, Lena insists she can fly. I ran my thumb over the words. Why didn't you show me any of this? Because every time you asked about him, I remembered getting the call. Mom pressed both palms flat against the table. Then I remembered you waiting by the front window because you thought every car might be his. She swallowed. I started answering less. Then you stopped asking. I picked up the watch. The leather strap was cracked. Was this his? Every day. I fastened it around my wrist. It hung loose. Beneath the watch were several military papers clipped together. I flipped through them without understanding most of the language. One page mentioned Al-Hadar Corridor. Another, farther down, listed North Kandahar Province. I went back to the first page. Mom, are these supposed to be the same place? She leaned closer. I don't know. Her forehead tightened as she read them again. I've never noticed that before. I looked at the two names for another second, then set the papers aside. I reached for the letters. The top envelope had my name on it in handwriting I barely remembered.
Lena.
I looked at Mom. She nodded. The paper inside had been folded so many times the creases had turned soft. I read slowly. Most of it was ordinary. He asked if I was still refusing carrots. He said Mom claimed I had learned to whistle, and he wanted proof. He promised to take me somewhere with real airplanes when he got home. Near the bottom, the handwriting grew smaller. There was one line I read twice. Whatever life you choose, make sure it's yours. I sat there with the letter in my hand, and Tyler's words came back before I could stop them. You don't even know what you want yet. My phone was in my bag. I could have reached for it. I stayed where I was. Outside, a low engine sound moved across the night. I looked toward the window. Mom followed my eyes. A plane passed somewhere beyond the roofs, hidden at first, then visible between two houses as a pair of blinking lights. I stood. Where are you going? Mom asked. Outside. I opened the back door and stepped into the cold with Dad's watch loose around my wrist. I stayed outside until the plane disappeared and the cold finally pushed me back into the house. Mom had left the wooden box open on the kitchen table. Dad's watch was still loose around my wrist, and his letter sat beside the military papers like it had been waiting 17 years for me to read it. I carried my laptop to the table and typed military pilot into the search bar. 10 minutes later, I was watching cockpit footage. 20 minutes after that, I had moved on to civilian flight training, student pilots, training aircraft, airport diagrams, and videos of tiny planes lifting off runways that looked barely wider than our street. I kept clicking. Private pilot, commercial pilot, airline transport pilot, flight hours, medical certification, weather,
Navigation.
aerodynamics. The words stacked up faster than I could understand them. Then I found an aviation program 3 hours away. I opened the admissions page. High school diploma, mathematics, physics recommended, medical examination, fitness standards, entrance assessment, tuition. I stared at the tuition number long enough to make sure I had counted the zeros correctly. That seems rude, I said to the empty kitchen. Mom had gone to bed. The refrigerator hummed behind me. I scrolled back up.
Math.
I reached into my bag and pulled out the D- for Mrs. Ellis. It looked even worse beside the admissions requirements. I set it next to Dad's wings. One of those objects said pilot. The other said, maybe learn fractions first. I almost laughed. My phone started buzzing across the table. Tyler. I watched his name light up the screen. My hand moved toward it before I caught myself. For years, if something happened, good, bad, stupid, embarrassing, Tyler was the person I told first. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted him to make some joke and make the last few days feel less real. The phone kept vibrating. I picked it up. My thumb hovered over the answer button. Then I pressed the side button and set the phone face down. A minute later, a message appeared.
Can we talk?
I read it. Then I reopened the aviation page. The next link said student pilot medical requirements. I clicked. By 2 in the morning, I had 15 tabs open and understood maybe half of what I was reading. Eyesight standards, health history, training hours, written examinations, ground school. I found a video shot from inside a small training plane. The camera shook as the aircraft rolled down the runway. The engine got louder. The nose lifted. Houses shrank. Roads turned into lines. For a few seconds, the whole ground seemed to fall away. I replayed that part. Then I replayed it again. Dad's letter sat beside my hand. Whatever life you choose, make sure it's yours. I looked at the watch around my wrist. Okay, I whispered. The next morning, Westbridge knew about the crash before I made it through the front doors. 2 girls near the trophy case stopped talking when they saw me, which would have been subtle if one of them hadn't still been holding her phone with a photo of Tyler's wrecked Mustang open on the screen. I kept walking. 20 feet later, subtlety officially died. I heard she grabbed the wheel. The voice came from behind me. Another one answered. No, she was messing with him or something. Bennett could lose his scholarship because of her. I stopped. Sophie, walking beside me, stopped too.
Keep moving, I said.
Absolutely not. She turned around. Who said it? Everybody. That isn't an answer. I looked at the students, suddenly finding lockers fascinating. Exactly. Sophie took one step toward them. I caught the sleeve of her jacket. Don't. They're saying you caused it. And screaming in a hallway will definitely make everyone more reasonable. I can scream very persuasively. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Then I saw Tyler near the stairs. He had heard it. I knew because his head had turned at exactly the same sentence mine had. For 1 second our eyes met. He started toward us. Then one of his teammates caught his arm and said something low. Tyler looked at him. Just for a second. Just long enough. He pulled away and kept coming, but by then I had already turned toward the math wing. Lena, he called. I didn't stop. Sophie caught up beside me. You want me to follow you? No, you sure? No. She squeezed my shoulder once anyway and headed toward first period. I checked the clock above the hallway doors. 7:24. The aviation admissions page was still open on my phone. I put it away and reached for Mrs. Ellis's door. Mrs. Ellis was writing equations on the board when I walked into her classroom at 7:25. She glanced over her shoulder. You're early.
I'm aware.
It's upsetting for both of us. She capped the marker. What happened? Nothing. You voluntarily entered a math classroom at 7:25 in the morning. Something happened. I pulled the D- from my bag and put it on her desk. She looked at it, then at me. Your retake is still available. I know. You want another copy of the review sheet? Probably several copies. One corner of her mouth moved. What exactly are you asking me, Lena? I slid my phone across the desk. The aviation admissions page was open. Mrs. Ellis read the requirements. Her eyes moved from the screen to the test, then back to me. Flight training? Maybe. I spent half the night looking at it. She pulled out her chair and Saturday. Do you know how much work this would take with your current grades? I'm starting to get the impression a lot is the answer. A lot would be optimistic. Great. She folded her hands. Why, aviation. I thought about the photograph. Dad's wings. The plane above the stadium. The cockpit video I had replayed 3 times. I don't completely know yet. Mrs. Ellis studied me for a moment. That's an honest answer. I tapped the D- with one finger. Can I fix this? She looked down at the paper. The grade? I looked at the equations covering her board, then back at her.
No. Me.
Thank you for staying with Lena all the way to this moment. If you were Lena, would you have walked away from someone you still loved to find out who you could become? Tell me below and leave an I made it so I know you stayed to the end. And if you'd like to follow Lena into the next chapter, like and subscribe. Thank you for being here with me.